before we let you ask questions, we thought that, or at least I thought, that the topics as they are there are relatively long and also somewhat verbose for a reason, because in the past these were just topics and there was absolutely no context, so we thought it's better if we explain it. But still, there is a slight chance that now we have the opposite problem, that it is sort of too verbose, so let's try to have some kind of slides, basically. So let's start with the bachelor's program. And in the bachelor's program, basically you have two basic situations. This is what you see on the left and the right hand side. So the basic situation is either you have English as your major, in which case you must write your thesis in English as well, or you have English as a minor, in which case you don't write your thesis in English. Now, this means that if you have the major, you have to have both a state exam and a defense. And if you have English as a minor, you only have a state exam with us. Now, you could read in the description of the state exam that the length of the state exam itself is about 30 minutes and the length of the defense is about 20 minutes. What you couldn't read there is what is already written here, is that the defense and the state exam are not happening straight after each other. So you are going to have, in a scenario like this, that you also have defense with us, the state exam in the morning and the defense in the afternoon, the same day. The reason for this is actually very simple. We want to make sure, we want to be able to guarantee even, that both your supervisor and your second reader are going to be present at your defense. In the past, we had a situation where very often only one of them could show up, or sometimes none of them. Neither of them showed up, so it meant you would be defending a thesis in front of a committee in which nobody has read the thesis. So that's not going to happen anymore. In the morning, you're going to pass linguistics, cultural studies, and in the afternoon, you're going to have your supervisor and your second reader and at least one more person in the committee, so that we fulfill the legal requirements of at least 3 people in the committee, and then this is how you're supposed to defend your thesis. Yeah. Now, also, the defense is 5 minutes longer than a single part of the state exam. The reason for this is so that you have enough time to both present your thesis and also to answer critical remarks or the questions that you have. And if English is a minor, then typically you're going to be also with the others who have defenses in the morning. Typically, there are some slight chance if you have too many bachelor students, it might happen that these people, some of these people might end up in the afternoon, but it's not too likely because typically that's where the defenses are. Okay, so let's talk about the individual parts of the state exam. The reason we start with culture and literature is simple. I started talking so that I'm going to talk about my part, and then my colleague is going to talk about the other part. So, this part of the state exam actually has 2 subparts. Part A, in which you get basically more or less something like a worksheet. I'm sure you've already checked the file, it was in the appendix, where you would have either 1 or more pictures or one or more short extracts from text. And then with that you also get a whole range of questions or prompts of what you should talk about. Now, I would like to stress that whatever is in the picture or pictures or whatever is in the text, it's okay if you don't know what exactly that is. So nobody is going to test you about whether you know that this is, let's say, a sonnet by Shakespeare. You might get a question about what form of verse this is, so you should recognize that it's, let's say, an English sonnet, and get questions like, okay, what period the English sonnet appears in, we would say the Renaissance, etc., etc., but you don't have to know whether it was written by Shakespeare, Marlowe, or who it was. Now, if you looked at the example questionnaire, the example worksheet that we have as the appendix, you could actually see that if you do recognize it, however, you can get extra points. What does that mean? It means that if you don't recognize it, you can still get a 1. There's no deductions for not knowing it. But if we are uncertain at the end of your exam whether we should give you 1 minus or 2, if you happen to know some of the things that were there, then you could get an extra point which would push it up. That's all. So no negatives, no deductions, possibly extra points. Another thing which is important to mention is that you're not going to be tested by the same topic twice. So, in other words, if you pick, let's say, romanticism in part A, then it's guaranteed that romanticism is not going to appear once again in part B, or the other way around. Overlaps there might be, so it can happen, for example, that if you looked at the list of topics, some of the topics actually are framed in a way that they do have slight overlaps. So overlaps can happen, but basically the 2 questions won't appear twice. So that's part A. Part B is very simple. You actually pick a number, and the number is the equivalent of one of those questions that were in the list in the description. For example, you pick, let's say, the Tudors in Britain, and that's going to be your second part, part B. In this case, your job is simply to make some notes and then present it to us, and we might ask questions. Now, this is why it is very emphatic here that in most cases the length differs on some things. So, altogether for this part, culture and literature, we have 15 minutes. Now, strictly mathematically speaking, that leaves us 7.5 and 7.5 minutes, but obviously this is not going to be strictly controlled. The reason we decided to sometimes to have part A with text or pictures is twofold. Reason one is that there are some topics which are rather stupidly examinable or not examinable at all without a question. So, let's say, for example, if somebody asks you to talk about poetic devices, metaphor, metonymy, etc., learning it by heart and just repeating it doesn't really make sense. However, if you have a poem and you're asked to find metaphors, metonymy, etc., it's obviously much easier and makes much more sense. That's one of the reasons we have text or pictures. There is another reason, and namely, if you looked at the example worksheet, all of them are going to look like that. You actually have 8-10 prompts, which are very specific. So, in if you only got a question British modernism, it's very easily possible that you would just say, oh my god, I don't remember. I blanked out. Or the opposite. This is the only question that I didn't study for, and that's it. So this is a big risk in part B. It's a zero risk in part A because you've got enough information that those pieces of information will help you recall a lot of things. And that's another thing, or that's one of the reasons why the length differs. If it doesn't only depend on us, it depends on you as well. So if you don't really know much about this, try to talk a lot about this, because here you have a lot of prompts. And we will, push you a tiny bit and try to find out if you just love this question or you really don't know the other one. But even if you absolutely don't know, but you are very good in this one, there is a high chance that you pass anyway. On the other hand, there are some people, I suppose especially those who contacted me, what exact materials we should use for preparing for specific questions, who would actually like to pre-prepare answers to all the topics and learn them by heart. They will love part B. So basically this is the best of both types of students, those who don't like learning things by heart but like to answer specific questions or prompts and analyze texts and pictures, and this for those who rather would love to, So nobody gets away with just what he loves, but nobody is left completely without any material either. So that's for the culture and literature. Obviously, after the presentation we will return to this and you can ask questions. So let's now move to the linguistics part, and I do have a very brief description of this topic.
So in the linguistic part, you will most likely get a worksheet, and on the worksheet you will have authentic text. And underneath the authentic text there will be some questions. The questions are connected with all the linguistic studies you have had during your studies. Therefore it's phonology, it is syntax, it is morphology. Yes? So the questions are interconnected. They can be interconnected, they don't have to be interconnected, but more likely you will get a question on the suprasegmental aspects of phonology, and then you will have a question on syntax. Okay? When you get the worksheet, you are asked to read the text, you are asked to read the questions obviously, and when you start talking about the topic, let's say negation, yes, you should start from the definition, you should say how negation is divided and so on. But what is very appreciated is that you find examples in the text. We don't want you to learn by heart and tell us all the examples which are in textbooks. We actually appreciate that you can look into the text and you can identify the specific classes or specific pieces of information in the text. And basically that is what is with linguistics.
Yeah.
There is nothing more complicated.
Well, I guess it's complicated enough. Yeah, so what I really try to emphasize, is that what you mentioned, try to find examples, but it's not enough to tell us the examples, you also have to define them, the phenomena, etc. Okay. So, let's move then to the master's program. And here again, we have the two basic scenarios that either you have a defense or you don't have a defense with us. The difference is, here it's your choice and not, your choice now and not your choice at the time when you applied for your studies and had no idea what you wanted to do with your life. Anyway, very similar, but first of all, in here you have 3 parts and not 2 parts in the state exam. You have also methodology of teaching English, and each of these parts is 5 minutes longer than in the bachelor's program. So not 30 but 60 minutes altogether for the state exam. And the defense is also not just 20 minutes, but 30. So definitely you wrote a longer thesis than you wrote in the bachelor's program, so you also need more time to defend it. Otherwise, the exact same thing is true here as well. State exam in the morning, defense in the afternoon. We try to, well, not just try, we guarantee that your supervisor and your second reader are going to be at the defense. So you will get questions from people who know what they are discussing. Yes. Okay, so again, let me talk about the literature and culture. I know that there are 2 different master's programs at present, even in the new programs, namely those who are going to be qualified as teachers of upper and lower secondary schools, and those who are only going to be qualified as lower secondary schools only. However, the basic format of the literature and culture part is the same for both of these programs. There is just one tiny little difference in there. And the basic format is this. You are supposed to read books. And not just any books, but books that we want you to read. So you actually can find the lists in the document on the faculty website, which describes the state exams. At the end of your document, you will find the list, and from this you have to choose a certain amount of books from a certain amount of different lists. And that's the difference, basically the only difference between lower secondary and upper and lower secondary, whether you choose from 2 lists or 3 lists. And you are supposed to talk about these books at the state exam with your examiner. However, and this is something I would really want to emphasize, it's not enough to tell us what the plot of the book is. I mean, it's unavoidable that we actually discuss that a bit, because otherwise we are not able to talk about the book if we don't touch at all on what happens, but that's not the point. What you should do is really provide an analysis of the novels from particular perspectives, and besides that, you should contextualize them in history, period, style, and political situation that they present. In terms of the lists, this is always true. For children's literature books, there is one more thing you have to do, and namely discuss briefly how you could or would use the children's literature book that you picked in the classroom. Okay, so that's true for everybody. So let's now move on and discuss the upper and lower secondary school teaching, which is actually the majority of the master's programs with a few exceptions. Here you have to submit before sitting down to prepare for your state exam a list of 9 books, of which 3 should come from the American and British literature list, 3 from the Anglophone literatures list, and 3 from the children's and the young adult list. And the American and British list, as you could see in the file, and the children's and the young adult list are divided into 3 sections each, so you have to choose 1 book from each section for these 2 parts. The Anglophones list is not divided into 3 sections, so it can be anything. Then comes a bit surprising and confusing piece of information. You are going to pick 2 books in a raffle. So you will get numbers, pick 2 numbers, and from your 9 books you will get 2 only. Obviously we might talk about the others as well, but especially and primarily we are going to talk about those 2. And you obviously are going to ask, how exactly does this going to work? One number is definitely from the children's and young adult section. Everybody has to talk about children's and young adult literature. And then the other number is coming from the remaining 6. So you might either end up choosing an American and the children's literature, or a British and the children's literature, or an Anglophone and the children's literature. The children's literature is definitely there. The reason for this is that part of your state exam must be also using literature in teaching, so that's the only way we can actually do that for sure. Lower secondary teaching only, who are in the minority here, they only have 2 lists, the Anglophone list and the children's and young adult list, and they, again, for the children's and young adults, you choose 1 book from each subsection, and the Anglophone just simply 3 books. And they also pick 2 numbers, but they actually only have 2 lists anyway in the first place, so for them it's a bit less confusing. Okay, that's more or less it. Let's move now to linguistics, which I don't know if you want to talk about it again, because it's the exact same format as in the bachelor's exam. So text, 2 topics, and you have to find examples, comment on the examples, define, etc. One difference there is, of course, and that is that while phonetics, morphology, syntax are still part of the questions, textual analysis and social linguistics also appear.
Lexicology.
And lexicology, yes. So more types of questions, but the format is the same. So let's move now to methodology, which is again your cup of tea.
Okay, so I will start actually with part 2 because it draws on what we used to have. So you will pick a number and you will pick a topic, for example, teaching vocabulary or teaching receptive skills, and you will either have a look at short text, where it's kind of a discussion between a teacher and a student or students, and you can read that and analyze it from the perspective of best practice in that area. So either the conversation or the speech of the teacher is correct and you say the teacher followed these and these and these steps or rules, or it is incorrect and you are to tell us why they are incorrect. So that's one possibility. This is the version A. Version B is that you get basic bullets and you can choose whether you want to do A or B. In the bullets it will be how do you teach receptive skills, what should you consider as important in pre-listening, and so on. Maybe what are the best activities to activate interest in the given subject, and so on. Yeah, so you can choose. Either you read the script or you just have the questions. But I can see the people who were here. I already showed you, or there is also an example, so you had a look at it. The part one deals with your teaching experience. You had 3 semesters of teaching practice. So we will discuss that, and as you know, you should have submitted or you will submit your portfolio, and from the portfolio we will pick one lesson plan. You will get the lesson plan when you are preparing for the exam, and we will ask you to comment on it. Maybe to comment on it based on the question you have drawn and how it can be applied, or the techniques, how the techniques can be applied in your plan, how they cannot be applied, and so on. Also, we can ask questions concerning your experience, teaching experience, what your best experience was, worst experience, how you dealt with problems, how you dealt with error, and so on. And also in connection with the children, teaching children literature, because it is mainly connected with reading, so I would expect that it focuses on the steps of presenting vocabulary, practicing vocabulary, the actual reading and post-reading activities which you can apply with your children portfolio. And it should take roughly half and half of your time. So 10 minutes we spend on portfolio and 10 minutes we will spend on part 2. Do you want to open it?
Yes, I do want to add one thing, that is this thing. In children's literature, with Dr. Markova, I created a portfolio in the subject. So when you submit your teaching portfolio from your teaching practice, you should add to that what you prepared with Dr. Markova in children's literature in a portfolio. So this is how you should submit it. It's actually an important piece, because otherwise we cannot ask about your specific lesson plans, which are not necessarily focused on what you did in school, but how you would, let's say, use Jabberwocky poem in the classroom, or whatever you chose to put in there. Just a basic list here of whom to talk to. If you don't know how to prepare for specific questions for the state exam, these are mostly the guarantors of those subjects, sometimes other teachers, depending on who actually teaches the subject. So if everything happens as it should, and this is going to be you, and those are going to be your pupils in the classroom, meaning if you pass the master's exam. The bachelor's then not yet, but then you can be a teaching assistant at a school. Okay, so now the floor is yours.
One more comment.
Yeah.
We also examine your English,
Yes.
your language. Yes, it also plays an important role.
Mm-hmm.
So if you mispronounce things too often, if you make too many mistakes, then maybe you answer the questions, but we just consider that we will just think that your language is not good enough to go further in your teaching or in your studies.
In most cases, this works similar to knowing or not knowing specific things in the bachelor's part. So, it usually, your language is just going to push your grade when it's between two grades, a bit up or a bit down, unless it is extremely horrible. In which case, if we, for example, really have trouble understanding you on a basic level, there is no communication going on, obviously, then it is even possible to fail because of the English. But I really hope that nobody is going to have this kind of problem at the state exams anymore. So, questions? Yes.
How does the defense look like? Like you should prepare a presentation?
Very good question, thank you. Yes, so the defense, basically when you write your thesis, you get two reports, one from your supervisor and one from the second reader. And those reports are not only going to give you grades, but also will describe what they liked and what they didn't like, where you should improve on it, and also give you specific questions or specific problems to focus on. So, in the first part of your defense, you should briefly, but really briefly, tell us what your paper was about, especially what was the thesis statement, what methods you used, and what are your findings. Basically, that's enough in terms of presenting it. And then, basically, the rest of the defense is going to be your reaction to those specific questions or specific critical comments that you got. This is why it's called defense. You have to, defend your thesis against the critical remarks and against the committee, basically. In terms of using a presentation, you can, but you don't have to. If you want to use a presentation, if you send your PowerPoint file or your PDF file to Lada Vondrushkova, our secretary, before your defense, then she's going to make sure that the file is already on the computer when you come to the classroom and you can use it. This is not the only option. Other people use handouts, you can give us handouts. Again, other people don't use anything and just build on their personal charm. This is also an option. All approaches have their advantages and disadvantages. If sometimes, if you like using PowerPoints, use them. If you don't like them, don't do it, because it works if it works, and if it doesn't work, it makes things worse. So really doesn't matter. Besides those two people who have read your thesis, whoever else is going to be in the room as part of the committee is going to get copies of your reports, both the supervisors and the second readers' reports, and also there will be an electronic copy on a computer of your thesis. If they want to look something up, then it's possible. Thank you very much. It's a very, very good question.
And I would just say that you don't spend a lot of time on the theory. You spend more time on the methods and your results. And then the questions the opponent or your supervisor has.
Yeah.
Or have, they both have.
So really, in terms of presenting your paper, it's enough to tell us what your research question or questions was, what was your thesis statement, what methods you use, but not in like explaining what those methods are, just what are the methods and what are the findings, and whether you found out that your thesis statement was correct or incorrect. And then you can immediately move to answering the very interesting and exciting questions and critical remarks from your second reader and supervisor. Yes?
I have a question concerning the children's literature portfolio, because in the requirements of the course at Mrs. Merkova, it wasn't part of it, so we don't really have any handouts or so, but the requirement for the exam was to prepare some activities that we would do with the books. So is it enough to include just the activities, not the whole lesson plan?
Yeah, sure, sure. Whatever you agreed on with Dr. Markova. In fact, she is the only one teaching children's literature, so ideally she should be here at this point, but she's in Norway, so.
Thank you.
I have a question concerning us who started studying in 2018, because on the website there were questions which were called something like probace. I'm not sure at the moment.
Yeah, probably dobíhající.
Yeah, dobíhající.
That's you.
And the questions are different from the new ones.
Yes.
So which ones should I prepare?
That one, yours, not what we talked about.
So
this is
this
for
one, I won't get a picture.
No. You won't get a picture, you won't get this, because you actually had basically half the amount of literature and culture as the new students, the students who started
Yeah,
the
some of
year
the
after.
topics I've
Yeah.
never seen.
So they actually had twice as much literature and culture, twice as much British and American studies, and twice as you did. So the reason the Dobihajci Studium is there is because there are still some people who either prolonged their studies or had to freeze their studies or whatever, or took a longer time to write their thesis. So you are in that category. You are absolutely separate from the others. So in fact, you are not even going to be in the same group with them. Because otherwise we would get confused and we would just get
So
crazy.
the date would be different as well?
Either the date or the committee. We tend to have parallel committees if we have a lot of students. So it might be the same day, but then a completely different exam committee, or it can be a different day as well. We don't know yet. At this moment, our secretary is preparing the lists and scheduling the things. But yes, you will not be mixed with the other students. There is one thing, however, which is going to happen to you as well, and that is that even for you, we are going to have the defense separately in the afternoon, so that you can be guaranteed to have your supervisor and your second reader in the committee, because that is possible to do even with you, and why not give you a better experience than, because I've seen a few defenses in front of people who haven't read the thesis. That's not very useful, so yeah.
And because of that, should we send any emails that we are in this program?
No, we know.
You know.
The system where you signed up, that is not tag, it's very, very important, but that link which is on the faculty website, you logged in with your Lian password, and it actually put you on a list, and on the list it actually then it created separate lists for this program and that program. So we know exactly how many we have. Actually we have in the bachelor's program, I think 12 people from the new bachelors and 17 from the old. So in fact there are more of you still than the others, yeah. Which is normal. For various reasons, students tend to not finish in the 6 semesters their studies. So, yeah.
Yes. What should be included in the portfolio? Should there be any papers from the bachelor program as well, like the first year's practice or something like that?
No, your portfolio from the master's
Masters
studies.
only.
So you had the PP1, PP2, PP3.
Thank you.
Okay.
The pictures
Yes.
will be from British studies or
The pictures will be can be for everything, and if you looked at the lists, those are the particular areas that can be discussed. So some questions can be about British studies, and if the question is about British studies, then the questions come from British studies. If the question is about American studies, then the pictures or text might also come from American studies. And if it is culture and literature, it might come from that. Now, what I can tell you, because probably that's hidden behind your question, as far as British studies is concerned, I'm not going to use any text or any picture which I did not use in my lecture PowerPoints in the lectures. So I'm not adding any random, unexpected question. But I cannot definitely promise that for the other two subjects because they are not my preparation. So different guarantors prepare different things. And not only that, but as far as the Introduction to Literature and Culture is concerned, where it is really a skill-based subject where you are supposed to be able to analyze even unknown texts from the perspective of, let's say, whether it is first-person narration or third-person narration, reliable narrator or unreliable narrator. For a question like that, even if I prepared it, I would probably give you an unknown text, because otherwise I wouldn't be able to decide whether you really are able to recognize this or whether you just learned it from the lesson and when we discussed it. So it might also depend on the kind of topic. For more literary, theoretical, narratological questions, it makes more sense to give you unknown texts. But for things like the example that you had in the file, where you have some important cultural artifacts from the earliest period of Britain, you don't have that many of those. So, like Scarabray, and Stonehenge is Stonehenge. Even if the question of the picture happened to be from a different angle, I'm sure you would still recognize the Stonehenge is Stonehenge. Though I'm not going to look for another picture because I'm lazy enough not to. So.
And what about American studies or American culture?
Well, I would expect, again, but as I'm saying, I'm not the guarantor of that part, so I can only expect that the approach would be similar. So basically, the teacher knows what she covered, so she's probably going to give similar things, but I cannot promise for 100% because I'm not Dr. Markova. But you can definitely, there was a list of whom to talk to, so you can definitely write her an email and then find out what she answers. Anything else?
My supervisor is Mrs. Shimankova, who will be my supervisor this summer or in June.
Yeah, we are definitely going to try to convince her to come and be present at your defense. And I think it's very likely that that's going to happen. But since, she left the department and she has another job, there might be a slight chance that at that time when we have the state exam, she, for example, is on a business trip abroad or something. Maybe. However, I think if she is normally working, she is not in Prague all of the week, just part of the week. And I think, if I remember correctly, she said that Monday, Tuesday, she usually is in Liberec, so I think there is a high chance that she would be able to come. Yes, this is the thing, like we guarantee that your supervisor and your second reader are here as long as they are from the department, or at least from the rest of the university, because some people here might have Docent Farek from the geography department as their supervisor, so that's okay too, we can make that happen as well. And we will try our best with Dr. Shimankova, and we will let you know, actually earlier than when you show up, so we can find out soon if she is going to be able to show up or not. If not, well, that's bad, but usually, although supervisors also are often critical if the thesis is not perfect, it is usually the second reader who is more critical. So even if they are both there, usually you spend more time reacting to the critical remarks and questions of the second reader than the supervisor. So since she's your supervisor and not your second reader, it's, I think, not the worst case scenario. And she's not going to be anybody's second reader, so. Yes.
Second question, sorry, and it concerns state exams as a whole, as they are. Is it possible, and I'm not sure if you know the answer, is it possible to have one attempt in, let's say, June, then other one in August, and then postpone the last one till next year, or do I lose an attempt that way?
Well, now I'm not going to know this with 100% certainty, because obviously your best bet would be to ask Mrs. Krečmerová. But as far as I'm aware of the rules, basically there's only one rule, namely that you cannot divide your state exam into more than a given amount of parts. So which is I think 2 parts. So if you pass one part and then the rest in a different goal, it can theoretically time that other goal. And there is always the option of freezing your studies like in between. And basically that's it. You cannot like completely divide them into separate parts. So one thing that is not normally possible at all, for example, is to divide the defense from that state exam in which part the defense goes. That was only possible during COVID, and only if your thesis was about methodology and you couldn't go to the classroom because there was no classroom to go to. In that case, the dean allowed that, but otherwise not. But definitely ask Mrs. Kretschmerova as well. I mean, what I said she's going to say, but she might know more as well than like further rules if there are any.
Okay, thank you.
And also, that's a good point. I mean, you didn't. They didn't make this point, but it reminded me of something. You know, the state exams are possible according to the timetable of the academic year between a day and another day, which is like a few weeks basically, but not very long. So if by any chance you don't want to take it into 2 parts, so you don't want to do part of it in June and the other part in August or January, but at the same time it might happen that you have a collision to some extent, you know. So like it's on the same day, let's say from history and English and chemistry and English. If this happens, you can contact us and we will try to do our best to put you on a different day or different hour at least. So that's possible to do. Nothing else? Yes?
If I remember correctly, you can choose, like we can choose whether we start with culture or linguistics.
Yes, yes.
Yeah. And we need to culture A and B.
Yes.
We choose that.
Yes, yes, yes. So, and not only in that, also in methodology, if you are in the master's program, you can choose which part of the methodology you start with. In linguistics also, of the 2 questions, you can choose whether you start with 2 or 1.
You probably can, but
Yeah,
the
yeah.
tendency is that
Yeah, usually people don't choose, but you can. I have heard people choose, but that's not the majority of the people. Yeah. So yeah, and by the way, strategies are varying. Some people leave their weakest to the end, and some the strongest to the end. And I really do not believe it makes any difference on the final grade, but you can do whatever works for you primarily.
And also, like, the committee is not there to find what you don't know. We want to know what you know. Yeah, so it's not that we have specific questions to actually put you under stress and find out, you know, how much you don't know.
Yes, you basically want to get a general picture of your knowledge, you know. So like, if we ask questions, it can be for 2 reasons. One, because we are interested in specific areas which you might have not covered. And since we have a limited amount of time, we cannot wait until you get there. But another reason is that it is always better if we have some kind of dialogue. So we try to have a dialogue. Just because we ask questions, it doesn't mean that something wrong is happening. It's normal. We all ask questions. And in fact, it's an exam, which is an exam in front of a committee, a board exam, which means that it can and does happen that a linguist asks a question about literature, or a literature person about linguistics or methodology or whatever. It's not like that it happens all the time, but it can happen, and even that doesn't mean that you are so bad that now even they can ask questions you don't know. It's just, we have our specialties, but we are also interested in other things, and sometimes we have a good question to ask. Nothing else? Okay, in that case, thanks for coming. I definitely would like to remind you one more time emphatically that if you are not sure about something, then contact people responsible for that area and ask. We are here to help. Also, that the autumn state exam and the June state exam are still technically in the same semester. So, please do come in June, don't be afraid. But if you happen to freak out and decide, no, I am really not able to do this now, then if you postpone it not to January but to August or September, then you are still in the same semester and you don't prolong your studies. And also, if you applied to the master's program, you can still start your master's program if you actually pass the state exam just a few days before the semester starts. That's okay. Just so that you are aware of this, and and also practical experience. Students who have both of their majors in the same goal usually tend to have worse results than those who have it in two separate terms. So maybe, even if you don't want to prolong your studies, doing one half in June and the other in August is not such a bad idea after all. Because otherwise, so many topics in such a short time, that's difficult. But it's your choice, of course. So, okay. So see you.
Thank you.